What happens when high school bullies pick on the wrong quiet farm girl who's secretly trained in deadly combat sports for years? Meet Sarah Chen, a 17-year-old who moved from her family's rural farm to Riverside High School in the middle of her senior year. With her simple clothes, shy demeanor, and thick accent, she became an instant target for the school's most ruthless bullies. But what these bullies didn't know was that Sarah had spent the last 8 years training in mixed martial arts at her uncle's gym back home, mastering techniques that could end fights in seconds. Sarah's story begins on a small cattle ranch in Montana, where her parents worked from dawn to dusk just to make ends meet. When her father got injured and couldn't work anymore, the family had to sell the farm and move to the city so her mom could take care of her grandmother. For Sarah, this meant leaving behind everything she knew and loved, including the one place where she felt truly confident, her Uncle Mike's MMA gym. Uncle Mike was a former UFC fighter who opened a small training facility behind his auto repair shop. He started teaching Sarah when she was just 9 years old, not because he wanted her to fight professionally, but because he wanted his niece to be able to protect herself. Sarah was naturally gifted. She absorbed techniques like a sponge, mastering Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and wrestling with an intensity that surprised even her uncle. By age 15, Sarah was sparring with grown men and winning. She could submit opponents twice her size and her striking was so precise it was almost surgical. But Sarah never bragged about her skills. In fact, she rarely talked about them at all. On the farm, she was just another kid helping with chores, and at her small rural school, everyone knew everyone, so there was never any trouble. Everything changed when Sarah walked through the doors of Riverside High for the first time. The school was 10 times bigger than her old one, with over 2,000 students from all walks of life. Sarah stuck out like a sore thumb with her thrift store clothes, work boots, and the way she kept her head down in the hallways. It didn't take long for the school's notorious bullies to notice her. The group was led by Jake Morrison, a 6 feet 2 inches linebacker whose father donated heavily to the school. Jake had never faced real consequences for his actions, and he seemed to take pleasure in making weaker students miserable. His crew included 3 other football players who followed his lead without question. For the first month, the bullying was mostly verbal. They'd make fun of Sarah's accent, call her names, and laugh when she walked by. Sarah tried to ignore them, just like her parents taught her. But the harassment kept escalating. They started knocking books out of her hands, shoving her in the hallways, and spreading rumors about her family being poor farmers who probably smelled like cow manure. Other students began avoiding Sarah, not wanting to become targets themselves. She ate lunch alone every day, did her homework in empty classrooms, and counted down the days until graduation. The breaking point came on a cold Tuesday in February. Sarah was walking to her car after school when Jake and his friends cornered her in the parking lot. There were no teachers around, and most students had already left. Jake was particularly angry that day because he'd failed a test and gotten benched from the upcoming game. "Hey farm girl," Jake called out, his voice dripping with malice. "I heard your family's so poor they had to sell their farm. That must really suck." Sarah kept walking, trying to get to her car, but the 4 boys surrounded her. They were all bigger than her, and Jake towered over her small frame. Sarah's heart started racing, but not from fear. After months of taking their abuse, something inside her was changing. "I'm talking to you," Jake said, grabbing Sarah's backpack and yanking her backward. "Don't walk away from me." Sarah turned around slowly, her hands at her sides. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Let me go to my car." Jake laughed and looked at his friends. "Or what? You'll call your daddy?" "Oh wait, I forgot, he's too injured to help anybody." That comment hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her father's injury had devastated their family, and hearing Jake mock it triggered something deep inside her. But she still tried to de-escalate. "I don't want any trouble," Sarah said. "Just let me leave." "But we're having so much fun," Jake sneered. He grabbed Sarah by the shoulders and shoved her backward. She stumbled but didn't fall. "You know what I think? I think you need to learn some respect." What happened next would become legendary at Riverside High, though most people wouldn't believe it at first. Jake reached out to grab Sarah again, this time wrapping his hands around her neck in what looked like a chokehold. His friends laughed and started recording on their phones, thinking they were about to capture another humiliating moment for the quiet farm girl. But Sarah had been in this exact position hundreds of times during training. The moment Jake's hands touched her neck, years of muscle memory kicked in. In one fluid motion, Sarah grabbed Jake's wrist with her left hand, stepped to the side, and used her right elbow to strike his ribs. The technique was perfect, a basic self-defense move she'd practiced thousands of times. Jake gasped and loosened his grip, giving Sarah the opening she needed. She spun around behind him, wrapped her arm around his neck, and applied a rear naked choke, one of the most effective submission holds in martial arts. Jake was unconscious in less than 10 seconds. His friends stood there in shock, not understanding what had just happened. The girl they'd been tormenting for months had just dropped their leader like a sack of potatoes. But Sarah wasn't done. One of Jake's friends, a kid named Brad, tried to grab her from behind. Sarah heard him coming and executed a perfect hip toss, sending Brad flying over her shoulder and crashing into the pavement. The sound of his impact echoed through the parking lot. The third bully, Danny, was smart enough to take a step back, but the fourth one, Marcus, came at Sarah with his fists raised. Sarah had been waiting months for this moment. She slipped his wild punch, countered with a sharp jab to his solar plexus, and followed up with a knee strike that doubled him over. Marcus crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. The entire confrontation lasted less than 30 seconds. Jake was still unconscious, Brad was groaning on the asphalt, Marcus was struggling to breathe, and Danny was backing away with his hands up. Sarah stood in the middle of them, not even breathing hard, looking like a completely different person than the shy farm girl they thought they knew. "Don't ever touch me again," Sarah said quietly, but her voice carried a weight that made Danny nod frantically. Word of what happened spread through the school like wildfire. Students who witnessed the aftermath couldn't believe their eyes. The quiet girl who ate lunch alone had single-handedly dismantled the most feared bullies in school. Video footage from the incident went viral, showing Jake getting choked out and his friends getting demolished by someone half their size. The school's reaction was swift. All 5 students were called to the principal's office the next morning. Jake and his friends tried to claim they were just joking around and that Sarah had attacked them unprovoked. But the video evidence told a different story. It clearly showed Jake grabbing Sarah's neck first, making her response legally justified as self-defense. Instead of being suspended, Sarah found herself becoming something of a hero. Students who had been afraid to speak up about their own bullying experiences suddenly felt empowered. Teachers who had suspected Jake's behavior but couldn't prove it finally had evidence. The school board reviewed the incident and determined that Sarah had acted appropriately to defend herself. Jake and his friends faced serious consequences. They were suspended for 2 weeks, kicked off the football team, and required to attend anger management counseling. Jake's father tried to use his influence to reduce the punishment, but the video evidence was too clear. For the first time in his life, Jake faced real accountability for his actions. The transformation in Sarah was remarkable. She no longer kept her head down in the hallways. Other students approached her with respect, and some even asked if she could teach them self-defense. Sarah started a martial arts club at school, teaching basic techniques to students who wanted to learn how to protect themselves. But the most important change was in Sarah's confidence. She realized that she didn't need to hide who she was or apologize for her background. She started wearing her farm girl identity with pride, talking about her family's hard work and the values they'd instilled in her. Sarah's uncle Mike wasn't surprised when he heard about the incident. He'd always known that Sarah had the skills to defend herself, but he was proud that she'd used them responsibly. She'd tried to de-escalate the situation first, only fighting when she had no other choice, and she'd stopped as soon as the threat was neutralized. The story of Sarah's confrontation with the bullies became a powerful reminder that you never know what someone is capable of. The quiet, unassuming farm girl who seemed like an easy target was actually one of the most dangerous people in the school. Her years of training had given her not just physical skills, but mental toughness and confidence that couldn't be shaken by a few bullies. Jake and his friends learned a valuable lesson that day. They discovered that their size and social status couldn't protect them from the consequences of their actions. More importantly, they learned that the people they saw as weak or different might be stronger than they ever imagined. Sarah graduated from Riverside High with honors and went on to study criminal justice in college. She continued training in martial arts and eventually became a self-defense instructor, helping other young people build the confidence and skills they need to protect themselves. Her story inspired countless students to stand up to bullies and never judge someone based on their appearance or background. The incident at Riverside High serves as a powerful reminder that bullying has serious consequences, and that sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should never underestimate. If this story inspired you, check out our next video about a seemingly weak kid who shocked everyone with his hidden martial arts skills.